There are some stories that the world waits decades to hear. Stories hidden behind polished smiles, carefully worded interviews, and the kind of silence that only comes from people who have learned, through hard experience, that fame has a price, and that price is often your most private truth. Benny Andersson has always been one of those people, a man of music first, of words second, and of personal confession almost never. For more than 50 years, he let the melodies do the talking. The piano keys carried what his lips would not, and the world, captivated by the shimmer of ABBA's golden era, was mostly content to accept that arrangement. But time has a way of loosening the grip we keep on our own stories. At 78 years old, Benny Andersson, the quiet architectural genius behind some of the most beloved pop songs ever written, has finally begun to speak. Not in grand declarations or dramatic reveals, but in the way a man of his character tends to speak, with warmth, with a touch of humor, and with the unmistakable weight of someone who has lived enough life to know that the truth, however complicated, is always worth honoring. And at the center of that truth is a woman he loved, married, hurt, lost, and never truly stopped caring for. Her name, of course, is Anna Fridlingstad. The world knows her as Frida. And after all these years, Benny has finally confirmed what many suspected but few dared say aloud, that what they had was real, that what they lost was profound, and that what remains between them is something neither time nor divorce could fully extinguish. To understand Benny's confession, you first have to understand the man himself. He was born on December 16, 1946, in the Västerbotten district of Stockholm, Sweden. His father, Gösta Andersson, was a civil engineer, and from an early age, the household was filled with music. Both his father and grandfather played the accordion, and when Benny was just 6 years old, they placed a small accordion in his hands and introduced him to Swedish folk melodies, traditional songs, and the popular Schlager style. It was the beginning of a lifelong love affair, not with one woman yet, but with music itself. By the age of 10, he had a piano, and he taught himself to play it with the kind of obsessive focus that marks future greatness. He left school at 15, already certain that the classroom could offer him nothing that a stage could not. He began performing at youth clubs, writing his first songs, and finding his identity in the chords and progressions that would eventually conquer the world. He was also, in those early years, becoming a father. His relationship with Christina Granville gave him 2 children, Peter in 1963 and Helen in 1965, before he had even found his footing as a professional musician. Life, for Benny Andersson, has never moved in a straight line. His big break came in October 1964 when he joined the Hep Stars, one of Sweden's most popular pop bands of the era, as their keyboardist. Within months, they had a smash hit with Cadillac, and Benny was suddenly not just a musician but a teenage idol. He wrote songs for the band prolifically, Sunny Girl, No Response, Wedding, and others, and in doing so, established himself as a genuine songwriter of rare instinct. But the moment that would truly change his life came in June 1966, when he met a young singer and guitarist named Björn Ulvaeus. The two became fast friends and almost immediately began writing songs together. Neither could have known then that this creative partnership would go on to produce some of the greatest pop music the world has ever heard. The story of ABBA is, at its core, 2 love stories set to music. Björn fell in love with Agnetha Fältskog, a blonde Swedish pop star with a voice like pure sunlight. And Benny fell for Anna Fridlingstad, a dark-haired, powerfully voiced Norwegian-born singer whose personal history was as complex and moving as any song ever written about her. Frida's background was one of quiet tragedy. She was born in 1945, the daughter of a young Norwegian woman named Sinni and a German Wehrmacht soldier named Alfred Husse. Her parents' wartime relationship was brief, shaped by the desperation and moral gray zones of occupation. Sinni was just 16 when they met. Facing enormous social shame in Norway after the war, Sinni fled to Sweden with her baby daughter and her own mother. But Sinni never got the chance to raise Frida. She died of kidney failure at only 21, leaving Frida to be brought up by her grandmother, Agni. Frida grew up without a father and without a mother, carrying the kind of quiet, bone-deep sorrow that never fully leaves the person. It simply gets channeled, in some lucky cases, into art. By the time Benny met her in 1969 at the Melodifestivalen, Sweden's Eurovision Song Contest selection, Frida had already been married once and had 2 children of her own. She was a survivor in the most essential sense of the word. And Benny, still young and still finding the full shape of himself, was drawn to her completely. They began a relationship almost immediately. By 1971, they were living together. For 8 years, they shared a life, a stage, a recording studio, and eventually, at the height of ABBA's global fame, a marriage. They wed in October 1978, when the band was arguably the most successful pop group on the planet. But fame, as anyone who has touched it will tell you, is not a gentle companion. ABBA's rise through the 1970s was nothing short of extraordinary. After their Eurovision victory in 1974 with Waterloo, the band became a phenomenon that transcended pop music. Dancing Queen, Mamma Mia, Fernando, The Winner Takes It All, Super Trooper, these were not just hit songs. They were cultural touchstones, embedded in the emotional memory of an entire generation. People danced to ABBA at weddings, cried to ABBA after breakups, and sang ABBA songs in languages the band never even recorded in. Yet behind the dazzling costumes and the seemingly effortless harmonies, the 4 members of ABBA were living very human lives. Bjorn and Agnetha's marriage, which had once seemed like a fairy tale, was crumbling under the relentless pressure of constant touring and global celebrity. They divorced in 1979, and Benny and Frida, despite all outward appearances, were heading in the same direction. By 1980, they had separated. The divorce was finalized in 1981. The official statements at the time were careful, measured, almost diplomatic. Benny told reporters that he and Frida remained friends. Frida was characteristically honest, saying that they had simply grown out of each other and that after long, difficult conversations, there was no way back. But the truth behind those measured words was more painful than either of them let on publicly. The real reason their marriage ended was that Benny had already fallen in love with someone else, a television producer named Mona Norclit, and when Frida learned of this, the hurt ran very deep indeed. Benny married Mona in November 1981, just months after his divorce from Frida was finalized. For a woman who had already lost so much in her life, losing Benny to another woman so quickly was a wound that took years to heal. What happened to ABBA after the divorces is a matter of music history. The band recorded their final album, The Visitors, in 1981, a mature, melancholy work that felt like a farewell even before anyone admitted the end had come. They released their last singles in 1982, made their final television appearances, and then, without any formal announcement, simply stopped. No press conference, no farewell tour, no grand statement. ABBA ended the way many great things end, quietly, and then all at once. Benny and Bjorn continued their creative partnership with remarkable success. They wrote Chess, a sophisticated musical that would eventually make it to Broadway. They shepherded the Mamma Mia stage musical to life, a show that has since been seen by over 70 million people across 50 productions in 16 languages and has grossed more than $7 billion. Their professional bond proved even more durable than the marriages that had once surrounded it. For Frida, the years after ABBA were harder and lonelier in ways that fame could not fix. She moved first to London, then settled in Switzerland. In 1992, she married Heinrich Rutzow-Reuss, a German prince, and became Her Serene Highness Princess Annefrid of Reuss, a title that, in quieter moments, she must have reflected on with some irony, given the circumstances of her birth. But even that chapter brought grief. Her daughter Annie, just 30 years old, was killed in a car accident in New York in 1998. Then, the following year, her husband Prince Heinrich died of cancer. In the space of 2 years, Frida lost a child and a husband. The depth of that pain is almost impossible to put into words. And what of Benny during all these years? He has been, by any measure, professionally triumphant. His marriage to Mona Norclit has been long and stable. He has composed orchestral works, produced other artists, and remained a deeply respected figure in the world of music. But those who know him describe a man who carries his emotional life carefully, who speaks little about what hurts, and who processes the past through composition rather than conversation. This is precisely what makes his recent willingness to open up so significant. At 78, Benny Andersson has begun to speak about Frida, about what they had, what went wrong, and what endures, with a candor that is new and quietly remarkable. His words are not the words of a man seeking drama or redemption. They are the words of someone who has simply arrived at an age where the pretense of silence feels less honest than the simplicity of truth. The clearest expression of this came on May 27, 2025, at the ABBA Voyage show in London, the technologically stunning concert experience that features digital avatars of the four members performing in a custom-built arena in Stratford's Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. The show had been running for 3 years, a remarkable achievement by any standard, and to mark the anniversary, Benny and Frida made an unannounced appearance together. They stood side by side in the balcony of the arena, two people in their late 70s, still carrying the echoes of everything they had been to each other. The crowd's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. These were fans who had grown up with ABBA, who had slow danced to The Winner Takes It All and wondered what it really meant, who had debated for decades whether Benny and Frida had truly made their peace. And here they were, together, smiling, looking for all the world like two old friends who had long since resolved whatever needed resolving. Frida spoke first, her voice warm and sure. She told the audience she loved them and thanked them for decades of support. Then, with a laugh that filled the room, she mentioned that she would be turning 80 later that year. The crowd erupted. It was a perfect moment, gracious, honest, and laced with the kind of gentle humor that comes only from people who are genuinely at ease with themselves. Then Benny took the microphone, and rather than deliver a carefully prepared sentiment, he looked at Frida, this woman he had loved and hurt and lost and never stopped respecting, and offered her something far more personal and perfect. He told a joke. Two men walk into a bar, he said, and Frida, who knows him better than almost anyone alive, laughed instantly and completely. Not a polite laugh, a real one. The laugh of someone who recognizes, in a single silly sentence, 56 years of shared history. For the fans watching, it was more than a charming moment. It was a confirmation. Benny's humor in that instant was his truth. It was his way of saying, we are still us. Whatever we were to each other, lovers, spouses, bandmates, co-creators of something the world still holds dear, that has not gone away. It has simply changed shape. And this is what he has finally confirmed, not in a formal interview with carefully chosen words, but in the living, breathing, laughing reality of that appearance. His bond with Frida is real, it is genuine, and it has survived everything. ABBA Voyage itself stands as a testament to that survival. The show opened in 2022 and has since pumped hundreds of millions of pounds into the British economy, drawing audiences who span multiple generations. Watching digital versions of ABBA as they appeared in the 1970s perform their greatest hits inside a state-of-the-art arena is an experience that defies easy description. It is simultaneously nostalgic and futuristic, a celebration of what was and what remains possible. The Voyage album, which preceded the concert experience and was released in 2021, was born from a reunion that nobody dared fully believe in until it happened. All four members came together for the first time in decades to record new music, and the results were extraordinary, not as a pale imitation of their 1970s work, but as proof that the creative and emotional connection between them had endured. Bjorn described the first day back in the studio as something deeply emotional, noting the warmth and friendship and bonds that were immediately present when he looked into the eyes of Agnetha and Frida. Now, in 2025, Benny and Bjorn's creative partnership continues to produce remarkable things. Both Mamma Mia and Chess are set to run simultaneously on Broadway, a feat that speaks to the extraordinary longevity of what these two